Merci tout le monde. Thank you for joining us for today's press conference with the leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul. We will begin now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. First, let me acknowledge the people behind me, many of whom are wonderful candidates running in Ontario and Quebec. So good to be here with you. So good to be here with you. And also to acknowledge that I'm here on the unceded territories of the Mississauga sorry, that's Toronto, the unceded territories of the Algonquin. C'est un plaisir d'être ici à Ottawa sur les territoires non cédés des Algonquins avec nos candidats et candidates de plusieurs circonscriptions d'Ottawa et aussi de Québec, Ontario. C'est vraiment un plaisir d'être avec eux aujourd'hui et c'est un grand plaisir d'introduire notre plateforme, notre programme. This is our platform, which was released just a couple of days ago. I know that this press conference has been a few days in the making. It was the circumstances of first the Jewish holidays. I'm Jewish, and you take a couple of days off for that, and then of course the debates. But I'm happy to answer questions about it today, and I hope that people learned more about our ambitious, daring program for the people of Canada during the debate last night. Alors, notre programme, c'est un programme d'audace. C'est un programme qui reconnaît qu'en fait, la pandémie a transformé notre société, qui reconnaît que le changement climatique a transformé notre société et qu'il faut agir. Que maintenant, c'est le moment de finalement dire que oui, nous allons attaquer le changement climatique, que oui, nous allons créer un filet social qui permette de tout le monde à vivre en dignité, que oui, nous allons faire le travail de la réconciliation et aussi d'assurer qu'on démonte les systèmes discriminatoires au Canada. So what our platform says is that this is the time for us to be daring, that yes, we have been transformed by the pandemic. Yes, we have been transformed by climate change, and we are not prepared to continue going on as if nothing has happened, as if it is business as usual. We are not going to forget the lives that have been lost, the 800 plus lives that have been lost out in BC in just a few days when a heat dome settled over British Columbia. We are not going to forget the 15,000 plus residents of long-term care who died, most of them completely unnecessarily because of what we have not done in long-term care. We are not going to forget the people that were thrown into financial crisis the moment that the pandemic hit. We are not going to forget that the world is counting on Canada as a wealthy nation, as an abundant nation, to do its part to tackle the climate emergency. This election and this platform is about not forgetting. It's about making sure that we do the work, that Canada assumes a role that it should have had for many years and has lost in the world, which is one of leadership, both on the climate and on socially progressive policies. Alors, une des différences fondamentales entre nous et les autres partis, c'est que nous sommes ici, tous nos candidats et candidates, de travailler d'une manière collaborative, parce qu'on sait qu'il doit y avoir des changements profonds dans la culture de notre Parlement. Si on veut avoir accès à les meilleures idées pour combattre le changement climatique, pour assurer que tout le monde peut vivre une vie de dignité, il faut le faire ensemble. And so what we are saying is that every single Green who is elected, every single Green that is elected by their community is someone that is heading to Parliament with an understanding that we need to strike out in a new direction, and we can only do that together. We are going to get further faster if we work together in the next Parliament. If we come together in the same spirit as the early days of the pandemic and say that we are going to make sure that Canada has the most competitive green economy in the world, to make sure that Canada is a leader in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If we come together to say there is nothing that they can do in Denmark or Finland or Germany in terms of universal programs that we can't do here. If we can come together, then there is so much that we can accomplish in a very short time. And it really is about that. Alors, notre plateforme, il y a trois parties, trois piliers. L'avenir verte du Canada, une vie dans dignité et une société juste. So we are talking about how do we get towards that green future as quickly as possible? How do we ensure a life of dignity for everyone in our country? And how do we build that truly just society? And as we heard last night from the people calling in to ask questions, it's time. To use another colloquial expression from my culture, right? We talked last night about soon come. The other expression that we use is a time, you know, a time, which means it's time. It's time for us to be daring. It's time for us to take the next great leap forward. I'm excited to do it with our candidates. I'm excited to do it with the other parties if they're ready to do it with us. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Merci, Madame Paul. On va commencer avec des questions sur place. We will begin with questions on the ground. We first have, we have Mike from Global National. Go ahead, Mike. One question, one follow-up.
Hi, Ms. Paul. Nice to see you. Thanks for doing this. A number of people, including pundits, are looking at your performance from yesterday's debate, lauding you for it, saying it was a very strong night for you. But after months of infighting and unfortunately some bad press in terms of what has been going on with your party, do you think that it's enough to salvage for some votes for your party and possibly get you some seats?
Thank you for the question. And first, let me completely self-indulgently, because I haven't read the reviews and the things and all of that. I mean, I'm just going to give myself a little, you know, for last night. You know, because it is kind of like the Super Bowl. And so if I put in a good performance on behalf of the candidates behind me who really are what this is all about, then I'm really happy for that. I have tried to be as frank and as open as I think the people of Canada deserve about what has been happening with the party. And I have said during the election that absolutely, I wish that we were further ahead, that we had been further ahead in resolving our own internal party issues before this election was called. I really wanted us to present the strongest face forward when this election was called, and I recognize that, you know, we have not been able to do that. I know that there are self-inflicted wounds, and I know that people in Canada are asking themselves, is this the time to vote Green? And what I have said is that, you know, whatever you're hearing about the rest of what is going on, please know that the candidates that are running for us across the country are incredibly passionate about their communities. They're ready to work hard for you. They are ready to be your champions in Ottawa. They are ready to bring a more diverse, a more inclusive, and a more collaborative spirit to Ottawa. They are ready to work across party lines, and they will be climate champions at a time that it matters the most. They will be progressive social policy champions at a time that it matters the most. And there is never been a riding that has regretted voting Green. Every Green who has ever been elected federally or provincially has always been reelected. And it's because they do an excellent job representing their communities. Right?
Just as a follow-up, though, to use the analogy of the Super Bowl, I mean, it had to be a Hail Mary. Do you really think that it connected, or do you think that people are still having that doubt in their mind about you because they're unsure if you will continue to lead this party and if the turmoil is really taken care of?
Well, that's a question for the people of Canada, and I wouldn't presume to give the answer. All I will say is that it was important to me last night to first say that, you know, if for people of Canada who are seriously concerned about the climate, for people in Canada who really believe that we have the greatness within us to finish the unfinished work of completing our social safety net. And for those who believe that it is time, that the time has finally come for true reconciliation and a true justice in Canadian society, that they can count on Greens for that. Again, as I said, I recognize that there are still a lot of open questions. I will do my best, and I know our candidates are doing their best to earn each vote, one vote at a time. And as I said, we have never, once elected, whether federally or provincially, ever let down the people who chose to elect us.
Bonjour, Madame Paul, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Bonjour.
Hier, au débat, il y a eu des propos sur le Québec, sur le racisme systémique, la loi 21, la loi 96. Certains ont trouvé ces propos-là insultants. M. Trudeau, ce matin, trouvait que ces propos-là étaient insultants. Pensez-vous que c'est insultant et pourquoi?
Quel propos est insultant? J'ai pas...
À propos de la loi 21 et 96 qui, selon la modératrice, était discriminatoire, ou vos propres propos qui disaient à M. Blanchet qu'il devrait s'éduquer sur le racisme systémique?
Bon, au sujet de M. Blanchette, en fait, ce n'était pas la première fois que j'ai invité M. Blanchette de s'informer. Parce qu'il y a encore une perception que le racisme systémique n'existe pas au Québec. Ça existe partout au Canada. Ce n'est pas quelque chose de particulier pour le Québec, mais c'est quelque chose qui existe là, comme ça existe ici en Ontario et partout d'ailleurs. Il y avait aussi des autres propositions pendant les derniers mois. Et j'ai toujours invité M. Blanchette pour se mettre en contact avec moi pour avoir une discussion chef à chef pour, à mon avis, créer des ponts de compréhension. C'est tout. Sur la loi 21, moi, j'étais toujours claire que je crois que c'est une loi discriminatoire, que c'est une loi qui est une violation des droits fondamentaux, le droit d'expression et le droit d'expression religieuse aussi. Et c'est pas parce que je dis ça que je n'aime pas le Québec. Non, moi et mon mari, nous avons des disputes de temps en temps. Ça fait 30 ans que nous sommes ensemble. Je le respecte, je l'aime, mais parfois il a tort. Et quand il a tort, je lui dis, mais je lui dis avec respect et bien sûr en amitié. La loi 96, j'ai dit simplement que ça mérite une analyse compréhensive, précisément parce que ça soulève des questions constitutionnelles. Il y a une montagne d'experts constitutionnels qui dit la même chose. C'est tout à fait possible qu'il n'y ait pas de problème avec la loi 96, mais ça mérite une analyse compréhensive et un débat aussi au Parlement. Just very quickly, I decided a very long time ago in a way that unfortunately racialized people and marginalized people often have to do to how you're going to approach those who negated your experience or denied your experience. And for me, I have decided many years ago that I'm going to extend a hand in understanding and seek to build bridges. And so when I hear that there are those that do not believe that there is systemic discrimination in Quebec, I say to them first that there is, and there is there just as there is here in Ontario and there is throughout the country. Our Supreme Court has recognized that, the United Nations has recognized that. There's a lot of data to back that up. And so I have extended an offer to Mr. Blanchette on a number of occasions to be in contact with me so I can share my experience, the experience of those who experience systemic discrimination so that we can build some understanding. It's an offer made in goodwill and seeking again to create understanding and comprehension. The laïcité law 21, is one that I've been very clear. I believe that it is a discriminatory law. I believe that it discriminates on the basis of fundamental human rights like freedom of expression and freedom of religious expression. And it's not because I'm saying that I'm not saying it with friendship, you know. I have disagreements with people that I care about, that I love all the time. I gave the example of my husband. We've been together 30 years. Sometimes he's wrong and I tell him, but it doesn't mean that I don't respect him. And it's the same thing here. With the Bill 96, it raises constitutional questions. It deserves a comprehensive analysis. It deserves a debate in Parliament. It could turn out to be completely legally acceptable. But again, we know from many constitutional experts that they want to see that analysis, and I support that.
C'est votre premier événement, si ma mémoire ne me fait pas de défaut, à l'extérieur de Toronto Centre. Vous avez vraiment mis tout le paquet pour vous faire élire. Ça dit quoi sur vos ambitions nationales pour le Parti vert? Vous espérez faire élire combien de députés, outre Mme May et M. Manley?
Je n'ai pas mis tout le paquet pour me faire élire. Comme on voit nos autres candidats et candidates, nous avons appris beaucoup sur comment soutenir les candidats et candidates d'une manière virtuelle. Malheureusement, je ne vois pas beaucoup de leçons de comment faire une campagne moderne. Nous avons retourné au système de prendre des jumbo jets d'une province à l'autre pour des événements de 30 minutes là à l'aéroport ou là devant un petit groupe de supporters. C'est pas une connexion. D'abord, c'est pas bon pour l'environnement et nous sommes un parti qui essaie de refléter nos valeurs dans nos actions et c'est pas quelque chose qui est vraiment une connexion authentique non plus. Moi, oui, j'ai dit que je passerai la majorité de mon temps à Toronto Centre parce que je voulais essayer de le faire autrement et parce que je suis le seul chef de parti qui a été élu dans la pandémie, dans la deuxième vague et qui n'avait jamais eu l'opportunité de vraiment faire contact avec les résidents de leur circonscription. Tous les autres chefs du parti, ils sont déjà les représentants de leur circonscription. Je trouve que c'est vraiment irréaliste d'insister que je passe tout mon temps hors de la circonscription. Je dois mériter le vote des électeurs à Toronto Centre.
And can you just repeat that in English, please?
Yeah, so I was saying that first, there are so many ways in which I feel like the lessons of the pandemic are just slipping through our fingers. Something that I believe I know it has changed me, and I believe that it has changed most people in Canada, our experience over these past number of months. And yet it seems like we're seeking to, when I say we, the political class is seeking to return to business as usual as quickly as possible without truly absorbing those lessons. In the case of campaigning, it's a perfect example. We learned so much about how to campaign in a modern way, how to use technology, how to use Zoom calls and virtual campaigning and texting campaigns and telephone town halls to have more direct and more authentic connections with people. But what we have seen is a reversion to the usual thing. You take a jumbo jet, you drop down in a location, you spend 30 minutes with your supporters, maybe even at the airport without even leaving it, and then you go on somewhere else, and that is considered to be a campaign stop. It has an enormous carbon footprint, and we know that that is a less authentic connection with people. And so we are trying to do things differently. And in the case of me as well, I think I'm going to ask for a bit of fairness here. I was elected in the second wave of the pandemic. There has only been pandemic and waves since my election. I need to earn the vote of the people that I'm seeking to represent. Every single leader of the other parties is an incumbent. They don't have that same hurdle to overcome. If we want new people and different people and smaller parties to be represented in our parliament, first we need to change our system. We need proportional representation, right? Yeah. And then we also really we can't keep applying the same playbook to them. And so that is my situation. And again, it will be up to the voters to decide, but this is the approach that we've taken.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Rachel Haynes from CTV National News. First
Hi,
of all, Shana Tova.
Thank you.
So I just want to follow up, I think, a little bit on what you're talking about having focused most of your campaign in Toronto Centre. But a lot of polls are showing that the Green support has not really gone up in this election. In fact, it's pretty low right now. Do you think that could have gone a little bit differently if you had gone across the country, we are seeing campaigns like Aaron O'Toole, who has spent a decent amount of time in Ottawa doing teletown halls, but he also is going across the country and meeting with people, and he has pretty high numbers right now. So
Yeah.
how do you think this is, your approach is being reflected in the polls right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think there'll be time to unpack that later on. I mean, certainly for me, again, acknowledging our situation, we entered it in a different set of circumstances than the other parties. I wanted to make sure, and I still want to make sure, that if I travel somewhere, first, that I'm wanted, and that's not a given, and then secondly, that is going to help our local candidates, and that's also unfortunately not a given. And that's something that I have to recognize, and it's again, it's incredibly difficult to acknowledge that, but those are the facts, that it might not always be the best thing for me to be in a riding, and I certainly never want to be a distraction to any of our candidates. So we have, and by we, I mean in terms of the parts of the campaign that I'm able to make decisions about, I've tried to approach this the best that I can. I've tried to approach this focused on our candidates in particular. I hope that what I'm doing is helpful to them. At the same time, it would be just disingenuous of me to recognize that we entered this campaign significantly disadvantaged by the events over the last months, and we just have some catching up to do.
Thank you. And I just want to go back to what you're saying about it's not a given that you'd be wanted by some of the local candidates, and that it would hurt some of the local candidates if you were to go to their ridings. Are you saying that have you heard from local candidates that they don't want you there? Is it because of everything that had been going on before the election that you feel like perhaps your leadership would be such that it would affect those local candidates?
The short answer would be yes. And also from my own estimation as well, I really want to be sure that if I do something, it's going to help and not harm the candidates. Much of the reason that I'm here today and that I made it to the debate is thanks to them, and my belief that they deserve the very best shot that they can have to win their seats. The people standing behind me are extraordinary people. They're people that are passionate about their communities. Many of them are deeply involved in their communities. Many of them have set aside their jobs, their families, to do what is an incredibly intense thing, which is to run for office and to put themselves out there. I want to honor that all the way through this election, and I want to make sure that anything I do is a help and not a harm. And part of that is recognizing that because of what has transpired, that it's not always going to be helpful for me to be there on the ground. And there's certainly going to be some candidates that have made that evaluation as well.
So
Pensez là-dessus, s'il vous plaît. Pourquoi vous pensez que vos actions ou votre présence pourrait nuire à certains candidats?
Parce qu'il y a eu une énorme quantité de controversées autour de notre parti. Beaucoup de les pièces médiatiques, ils sont concentrés sur la situation interne de notre parti. Je veux que l'attention soit concentrée sur nos candidats et candidates qui sont énormément passionnés pour leur communauté, qui sont incroyablement dédiés à un avenir vert pour notre pays, que je suis sûre vont absolument faire un excellent travail pour leur communauté et aussi pour le Canada dans les prochaines élections. Une des raisons clés que moi je suis ici aujourd'hui, que je tiens le coup, c'est parce que je crois qu'ils méritent la meilleure chance possible d'être élus dans les prochaines élections. Ils ont fait des énormes sacrifices d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je veux honorer ça. Et je veux dire encore une fois que malgré la situation interne avec notre parti, que nos candidats et candidates sont des personnes qui vraiment vont travailler fort pour leur communauté. Et je peux vous assurer qu'ils vont travailler de manière collaborative sur les enjeux qui sont les plus importants pour les gens au Canada.
Merci, Madame Paul. Ça conclut les questions sur place. Thank you, Ms. Paul. This ends the questions on the ground. So we will go to some questions. We do have some questions online, Ms. Paul, On va passer à les questions sur Zoom. Madame Paul, il faut mettre les earbuds.
Oh, les oreilles. Are they?
Les oreillers.
Oh,
Oui.
merci. I was hoping it was a snack. Isn't anyone going to ask me how tired I am? Are you tired? The answer is yes. Do your legs hurt? They do.
Thank you, Madame Paul.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Madame Paul. We will now be going to questions online. The first question is from Alex Bollingall from the Toronto Star.
Hey, sorry, I couldn't, my legs hurt too, so I didn't hoof it down there. I'm in Ottawa as well, but can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to ask you about it. I mean, your first two debate performances, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of controversy around the party. I just wanted to ask, can you take me through this week? It obviously started with some canceled events on Sunday with a family crisis. Can you tell us if everything's okay with that? And also just walk us through what it was like going through all these debates, and if you think your performance was good enough to turn the page on the internal divisions that have in part prevented you from traveling to other ridings, for example.
Thank you for the question, and my son is doing better. Thank you. In terms of the rest of it, I have to say, I mean, I feel like we've kind of covered it. Anyways, I know I get asked the questions that I'm asked, but I'm so excited to talk about our policies, and I'm so excited to talk about how we can build a better future for people in Canada. This week was, I think, similar to a lot of weeks for people in the party, except perhaps for the fact that I did have to take 2 days away for Jewish holidays. It is incredibly unfortunate that this is the third election cycle in a row that we have had elections during these holidays. I don't know why that keeps happening, but I do know that it means that I always have to take some time off, and I'm still going to have to take 1 or 2 more days off during this election cycle. Other than that, I had some wonderful people helping me to prepare for the debates. In terms of my performance, I'm going to leave that to other people to judge. I went up there hoping to represent the people who stand behind me as best that I could, represent a platform that I'm very excited about as best that I could, and also with an eye to history, knowing that as I said last night, I'm the first of my kind in the sense that I'm the first woman of color, I'm the first Black person, I'm the first Jewish person to be up there. Those things have mattered throughout my leadership. I wanted to do people proud. I wanted to make sure that the next time someone like me is up at the stage, it's just a little bit easier for them to get there in the first place, and for them to be able to do the job once they get there.
And just as a follow-up on policy, I wanted to ask you for more details on the just transition piece of the platform. You guys are the only party with sort of a timeline for phasing out oil and gas. Then there's a mention in there of replacing all the high-paying fossil fuel sector jobs with high-paying green sector jobs. Can you provide us with more detail on how that would happen, what your just transition policies would look like, how much money you want to put at that, and how you would replace high-paying oil and gas jobs with high-paying green jobs?
Absolutely. And, I mentioned, as I have a number of times, our personal experience in our family with my brother working as a roughneck out in Alberta in the oil patch, and then losing his job for good during the second wave of the pandemic. I mentioned that because it's so important for all of us here, for me and for our candidates, that the people of Canada know that this is personal. This is about us caring about the communities that we live in. This is about making sure that the people of Canada who work in the oil and gas sector have a future. We all remember, that's not true, I'm dating myself. I remember when the cod fisheries collapsed out east. And I remember that up until the last second, we had government officials and we had private corporations telling us everything's fine, no alarm bells here. And then communities were devastated for good. And so absolutely the future of Canada is in energy. We can and should remain an energy superpower, but we're talking about renewable energy and not fossil fuel energy. Greenland the other day when they announced that they would stop all oil and gas exploration and leave hundreds of millions of barrels untapped. They said that their future was in energy as well, but it was in renewable energy. And so for oil and gas workers, what I want you to know is that the jobs in the green sector pay more. These are jobs that are directly transferable with the skills that you have. And these are jobs where in the United States, almost half of the people who are employed had nothing more than a high school diploma. So these are jobs that have a secure future, they're safer, and they let you get home to your family at the end of the day. So we are thinking about you when we talk about economic diversification. Please don't let the other political parties wait until it's too late. Let's get started now in the way that other countries have.
Français? Ça va? Est-ce que oui, en français un petit peu, s'il vous plaît, juste sur ça?
OK, oui, peut-être un peu plus rapidement. Oui, d'abord, juste pour dire que pour nous, la transition juste, c'est quelque chose de personnel. J'utilise l'histoire de mon frère précisément parce que je veux que les gens sachent que moi et notre parti, on parle de nos communautés. Mon frère était un ouvrier dans le secteur pétrolier en Alberta. Il a perdu son travail pendant la deuxième vague de la pandémie et il cherche un avenir sécuritaire pour lui et sa famille. Alors, c'est dans cet esprit qu'on parle d'une transition juste, précisément parce qu'on sait que oui, l'avenir, c'est dans l'énergie, mais c'est dans l'énergie renouvelable. Le Canada a tout ce qu'il faut pour être un géant sur l'échelle d'énergie renouvelable à l'échelle globale. Les emplois dans ce secteur, ils payent plus. Pour chaque million de dollars investis dans le secteur vert, on crée presque 3 fois plus d'emplois que dans le secteur pétrolier. Et on sait que les compétences des ouvriers dans ce secteur sont directement transférables, j'espère que c'est le bon mot, au secteur vert. Alors, je ne veux pas qu'on gaspille plus de temps. On sait que tous nos partenaires internationaux sont en train de faire cette transition. Ils sont en train de sécuriser l'avenir de leurs travailleurs et travailleuses. On doit le faire ici si on veut rester compétitive et si on veut assurer que les communautés dans les régions qui sont fort dépendantes sur le secteur pétrolier ne soient pas déplacées.
Merci, Madame Paul. Thank you, Ms. Paul. This concludes the questions. Ça conclut les questions pour aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all of our wonderful candidates for joining us. Platform 21. 21.
Merci tout le monde. Thank you for joining us for today's press conference with the leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul.